think we are all set. If you hear that doorbell sound, that's some people joining on the Zoom link. So you might hear that a few more times as we get started with the beginning of the program. This program is College Applications for Procrastinators. We're going to talk about just kind of the college application process in general. Hopefully I'll give you a few tips for how you can beat that procrastination tendency, stuff like that. And I'll also introduce you to a few library tools that will hopefully be helpful for you as you approach the college search and application process. But just to start from a place of complete honesty and to let you all know that we're all in a safe place here together. Hello, my name is Cameron, and I am a procrastinator. It's good to be aware of the problem and that it's something that comes up for you. You don't have to admit it to us in the chat or anything like that. But I put things off probably a bit longer than I should have a lot of times. For example, I finished the slides for this program, let's say 2.5 hours ago. It was probably a little bit longer. Just to be generous. But having said that, I did go to college. I applied to college a couple times. I was admitted. I finished college, and I'm also gainfully employed at the moment. So if despite any procrastinating that you all do, if there's hope for me, there's hope for you all as well. So with that, having said that, let's get into the information. So this program isn't meant to be comprehensive at all. It's not going to give you absolutely everything you need to do, to know, or to do to finish all of your college applications in the next 3 days or something like that. You should definitely still tap into this network at your schools or in your extracurricular communities. The people like your teachers and counselors and coaches, things like that, also might have good advice for you. My goal here is just to kind of help you maybe break down the information a little bit in a way that's easier for you all to navigate the process. So what we have on the screen at the moment, in kind of the broadest terms, is the college application process. You don't necessarily have to do them in this order. I think it does make sense to at least think about finding what colleges you want to apply for first. You don't want to do a bunch of steps and then decide later that you don't want to apply to that college. That would be kind of wasted effort. And also, you probably want to do the financial aid stuff last. Once you've applied to colleges, you've made a lot of decisions about what you were pursuing with your college application process. That'll kind of help you with some of the financial aid things. But steps 2, 3, 4, and 5, you can kind of do those in any order. And I'll make some suggestions for how to stay organized as we go along. The first step, and the first thing we'll talk about, is finding and applying to colleges. This can be a really interesting part of the process. It can be fun to kind of think about different ways that you might want to go. Different places you might want to live, different things that you might want to study. So give yourself a little space to dream here. And for things that you can maybe think about during this stage in the process, you might want to think about where you want to be in the country. Do you want to be close to home so that you could come home and do your laundry at the house every weekend? Or do you want to be so far away that you can only come back for those longer breaks? That's a decision that's probably up to you and your folks, but something to think about. You also want to consider the degree programs that the colleges that you are thinking about applying to offer. You don't really want to apply to a college that doesn't offer the major or the concentration that you want to pursue in your education. That wouldn't be a great idea. So even if all of your friends are going to one college, if they don't have that program that you're looking at, it might not be the best choice for you. You also want to consider how expensive the education at that college is going to be. We hear a lot about student loans in the news these days. It's a big financial decision. It gets bigger every year, to be honest. It's an even bigger commitment than even when I was in college, which wasn't that terribly long ago. So it's something you really want to consider as a part of your application. And I'll give you some tips for there as well. And then you also might want to think about those extracurricular things, not just extracurricular things on campus, like clubs, and sports and stuff like that, but also extracurricular things in the community around the college. Maybe you're a big outdoors person and you want to spend a lot of time doing outdoor activities. Maybe you consider something in like Colorado or Wyoming or something like that. Or maybe you're a big city person and you're looking for cities rather than access to nature. These are all kind of things you want to consider. But specifically for the procrastinators, the other two pictures on the slide, this one here, are both tips for if you maybe put things off a little bit on making that decision about where you want to apply. Schools do have application deadlines. They aren't going to be terribly interested in pushing that deadline back just for you. So you do need to be aware of those admission deadlines before you start filling out the application. So one tip that I have for you is to look for colleges that offer rolling admission. Rolling admission means that there isn't usually a strict deadline for when you have to have your applications in. And they will continue looking at applications until the pool of available student slots that they have is filled up. Other things that you can look for with schools that will maybe help you with that procrastination bit is you can look for schools that offer test optional admissions. So schools that don't necessarily require standardized testing like the ACT or the SAT. Or you can look for schools that offer test blind admissions. Where the tests are generally required, but they aren't really looked at as a part of your application until you're offered admission. And then a big time-saving tip is this one here in the middle, which is to use a multi-application admission system like the Common App. Since you all are here in the room with me today, have you all heard of the Common App before? No. Okay, great. So it's something where you can apply to a lot of colleges at once without having to go through each institution individually. And we're going to take a look at that in a little more depth in a few slides. But before you even get to that admission process, you still need to figure out what colleges you want to apply to. And one way to do that is you could log on to Google and you could search for colleges that you know of. And then you could investigate each of their websites to see if they have the degree program that you're looking for, if they have the extracurriculars, maybe all those other criteria. Another way that you could approach searching for colleges is by using a guided search tool. And two guided search tools that you could use. One is called Learning Express Library. This is actually something that we offer through the St. Louis County Library that you can access from home with your library card. And it's a database that offers a school finder. So it's kind of got a guided search tool where it will ask you questions about what you're looking for in college. And then it will produce a list of results that meet that criteria. That database also has information in it for standardized test prep, as well as career exploration. And we could look at that in a little bit more detail if we have time at the end. Learning Express Library is also something that I've seen that a lot of school districts offer through their library services in the school district. So you could check with your school librarians as well to see if they have it too. But if they don't, you can definitely access it through SLCL. The other guided search tool that I would recommend you trying out, and which I'm going to demonstrate for you quickly today, is called College Navigator. College Navigator is the service that's from the Department of Education in Washington, and it offers you similar things that you could do in Learning Express Library, but it has more options, and I think you get better information from it. So we are actually going to take a look at that one in more detail in just a minute. Once you get a list of colleges that you think that you want to apply for, that's when you probably want to investigate something like the Common App. The Common App is what's known as a multi-application tool. It isn't the only one that's out there, but I think it is by far the biggest one that is offered, that offers this kind of service. And like anything like this, it has some pros, it has some cons, it has some in-betweens as well. So within the Common App, there are over 1,000 colleges that you could apply to. There's 1,000 colleges that use it as part of their admission process. And you could submit one application for up to 20 schools at a time. To be realistic, I would not suggest that you apply to 20 schools at once. That's kind of a lot of schools. It could rack up a lot of money in application fees as well. So I would narrow your list down a little bit more. But you can apply to up to 20. Another thing is that applications roll over in the Common App year over year. So if, for instance, you go through this admissions process and you maybe don't get the financial aid package that you're looking for, or you don't get into the school that you want to, and you maybe just want to take a year off from school, all of the information that you had loaded into the Common App will still be there the next year, so that you don't have to go through that whole big process again if you decide to kind of wait a year. So, but some kind of in-betweens with the College App. The number of colleges that are in it can be overwhelming. So you see kind of all of these choices that you can make, and you can maybe get kind of paralyzed with that many options. Even though you're using one application system, some schools might have their own specific requirements within the Common App. So even though you do a college essay right there in the Common App, some of your schools might ask for even more writing supplements that the other schools do not ask for. So sometimes you are still doing extra steps along the way, and it's not just everything goes through the Common App. And then the big major con with the Common App is just that not every school uses it. So you might come across a school that you're really interested in applying to, but the Common App doesn't work for them. So you'd have to apply through their school directly anyway. But if you apply to 7 schools and 6 of them are in the Common App, that's a big time saver for you as well. All right. So with that said, let's do a little bit of practice. I'm going to show you how both of those tools that I just talked about operate. So we're going to do a quick search in College Navigator to come up with a few schools, and then we're going to load those into the Common App to see how that works. And if the screen doesn't show what you're seeing right now, please let us know in the chat that it's working. All right, so this is the College Navigator guided search. And what you're going to look for is this big bar on the left-hand side of the page. This has all of the different options that you can choose to build a school list. And you can go through each of these options to build that list. And if you click this little plus sign right here, it will open up even more options that you could use. Just as a quick demonstration, I'm going to use this map tool. It's right here. So if I click there, brings up this little map. And this is where I can select the states that I'm looking for colleges in. So let's see, Missouri, Illinois, Colorado, Mississippi, Vermont, Montana. So have all corners of the country covered, just to cast a very wide net. And now I'll only see colleges in my search from those states. Close that. And then the next thing that I would suggest you search by is for programs and majors. And for that, you actually click this Browse Programs button, which is going to bring up a new little box for you. And this is where you can select different majors and college programs. I'd suggest using this little search box right here next to programs and majors. And I would keep your options broad here. So let's say education, maybe folks that might want to be teachers. And then if I want to add that as a program option, I click this little add button right here. So I click that and then it moves it up here to this top box. Let's add some others here, computer science. That. English literature, because that's what I got my degree in. Others that you might want to see. This is just a test. So. What about
engineering, maybe?
Okay. You have to spell things correctly. So okay. that's a good thing to know. Okay, so here's engineering related technologies. I think we actually put this one. That's probably enough to get us a decent list. Close that here. And then you could probably skip some of these, but it depends on your specific needs. So are you looking for a public school? Which would be things like the University of Missouri or other options. You can put in like maximum tuition. I would kind of keep that broad for the time being and not put anything in there. Do you want to have housing? So this is an option for on-campus housing like dorms, is what I would probably. You can choose the type of setting. So maybe you don't want to be rural, but you don't want to be city. So maybe you do college towns and suburbia. You can see you get lots of different options in here. You can even choose average SAT and ACT scores, distance learning options, and even religious affiliation. So depending on what you're looking for, it's there. And then once you have all of your options that you want to search by there, you're going to click show results. And that will take you to a nice big list of schools that meet the criteria that you selected. So in this case, we have 86 results that are in those states and offer those degree programs. And you just get the names at first. But what you can do is if you click into one, you get a lot more information. And this is a big difference between College Navigator and Learning Express Library, is that Learning Express Library doesn't give you a lot of this information. So you do get this general information tab, kind of tells you the basics about it, what kind of student services it has, how large the faculty is. And then once you get down to here, you can see all of these different areas where you can gather information about a school. So you can see what their general financial aid package is. And probably take me a while to really interpret this very well, but you can kind of get an idea for it. The types of aid. Admissions is probably a good one. It tells you how many applicants they generally get, what their admission rate is, things like that too. Well, it's a great way to find all of that really basic information that you want to know about a school without having to kind of Google it and then go through their website individually one by one. Get that here. All right. So any questions? You want any questions about this one you'd like to see? Okay. All right. So once you have a good list of colleges that you think that you might want to apply for, you can go over to the Common App, which is this page looks like. The first time you log in and you create an account, it does ask you a bunch of information, just kind of your basic demographics and names, things like that. But once you get past that step, you have this dashboard. And this is where we can start searching for colleges to see if they are included in this application. So you can click college search. And then you'll see here, there are 1,086 schools that use the Common App. And you can search for them by name in this little box. So if we do like Missouri, it updates down here. We get a bunch of Missouris. So Missouri S&T would be a good one for engineering. So I'm probably interested in that one. I click add. And then that's going to be in my little dashboard when I go back. Do some more. University of Missouri. That's where I got my bachelor's degree. What about Illinois? That one. Let's get some other ones. Let's look for Adams State University in Colorado. Okay, so that one is not one of the colleges that uses Common App. Let's check Bennington. If Bennington's in there, we'll add that one too. So we've added a couple now. Let's go back to the dashboard and check that out. So these are all the applications or all the colleges that I selected. And you can get more details if you open them up here. If you do this, it'll show you kind of all of the different things that are required for that college's part of the Common App. But a really good way to get all of that information in one easy to read page is by clicking this application and requirements button up at the top. When I click that, it's going to take me to a new page that just has a grid of the colleges that I selected on it in an easy to read way that has all of the different criteria that you need on it. So like this first one here is deadlines. And if we look over here, these are early decision 2, I guess. I don't know what EA is. But over here is the one that says rolling, which if we are all procrastinators in this room, it's probably the one we want to look at. So you'll see Bennington, their deadline is already passed. University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, theirs is already passed. But we still have a couple months for both University of Missouri and University of Missouri S&T. So that can be a good way to weed out some schools that you're not going to apply for. In addition to that, it'll also tell you what the application fees are for that particular school. And then as you get over here, you have even more information about the testing standards. So like The University of Missouri's is sometimes required. I believe it says that usually when you don't meet like a GPA threshold. Things like that. But U of I is never required, Bennington's never required. And if one of these little columns doesn't make much sense to you, if you hover your mouse over the question mark, it'll give you a nice little pop-up about what each of those things in the criteria means. And then over here, you have even more information. So this, I think, is a great tool for the procrastinator and all of us, because it's kind of a built-in to-do list. If you are in your applications and you get to a spot like this, where you have a big list of schools that you think that you're going to apply to, you can use this to cross things off. You can make highlights, all different kinds of ways to keep yourself organized. And you don't even have to write it out yourself. It's just kind of made already within the content. So no, go kind of quickly. Is that all making sense to all of you? Kind of see how this could be helpful in the application process. All right, so our next section is on the admissions exams. These are the standardized tests that you may or may not have to take, depending on the schools that you're applying to. The two major ones that most schools accept are the SAT and the ACT. And these are the upcoming testing dates and registration deadlines. I don't really have any good tips for procrastinators for this part. It's you sign up for a test and you go take the test. Those are pretty much the options you have if you're going to decide to take the test. And this is a good point to note. If you registered for this program with an email address, I'm going to email you these slides in the next couple of days so that you'll have them to refer to later. But besides the registration deadlines, it is a good idea to do at least a little bit of studying for these tests. That's some information I have for you on this next slide. Kind of covered this already, so skip it. But we again have test prep resources for you at the library. We already saw Learning Express Library. I'm going to show you what their test prep resources look like in a minute. But we have another tool that I'm going to talk about a few more times this evening that's called BrainFuse Help Now. BrainFuse Help Now has standardized test prep in it for all of the major standardized tests that you might have to take, including the AP exam, different career-related exams. It also offers live tutoring every day from 2 to 11 p.m. in pretty much whatever subject that you need help. So it's good. It's a good place to get actual live help with another person that can work with you on some of these tests as well. It also has a writing lab for reviewing written work. So when you get to the point where you are writing your personal essays and other writing components that you'll have for your college applications, if you get a draft done early enough, you can upload it to BrainFuse and they'll get back to you in about 2 days with suggestions for improving your writing. So, it's a really nice service, not just for your college applications, but for your general schoolwork as well. And then this is a quick look at what the standardized test prep looks like in Learning Express Library. For the ACT, which is this screenshot on the left here, they actually have a full guided ACT course within it. So not only does it have practice tests and practice exercises and stuff like that, it also has a built-in assessment in it. So this first step, or this second step, step 2, You'll take kind of pre-assessments, which will give you an idea of where you really need to improve on your scores. And then it will kind of tailor the next steps to your actual individual needs, which is pretty nice. And it'll kind of prioritize one subject over another as you get closer and closer to your test date. Another great thing about Learning Express Library is that it has a couple of options for taking practice exams. You could do it in kind of a practice way where you're not timed. You can go back and forth between questions and stuff like that. And you can take as much time as you need to complete the exam. It also has an option that you can turn on that tries to mimic as closely as possible the actual testing conditions that you will have on the day you take the test. So there'll be a timer. Once that timer runs out, you're done. You can't go back and do anything like that. And it tries to look like the exam as well. A big part about preparing for these standardized tests is actually having a testing strategy for learning how to take the exams. Because it's not like a standard test that you might get in your classes in high school. You can actually come up with a strategy that helps you prioritize the information that you know, and you can get out of the way quickly. And then you can go back and spend a little bit more time in those areas where you might need to slow down a little bit as well too. So, it's a really good idea to do these kind of simulated exams as much as you can beforehand. And then this screenshot on the right has information about the new version of the SAT. This is something I actually just learned about like the last week or so. So I don't have a whole lot of information. Is that there's a new format for the SAT. It's called the digital SAT. But that's about all I know, to be honest. So thankfully, you can get some more information from Learning Express Library, as well as probably the SAT website. So we are moving along pretty well. Our next session is on essays, which I think if I think back to when I was applying to colleges, I think I really dreaded the essay part of it, where you have to kind of talk about your experience or yourself, or tell a story about yourself as a part of the applications. And I think that was a big cause of anxiety for me when I was doing these applications. Or when I look back now, I think it's kind of an opportunity if you can think about them a little bit. Lost my words a little bit. They're just an opportunity, I think, to have a little bit more fun than just kind of filling out forms with your basic information. It's an opportunity for you to personalize your application, to tell your story about why you want to study at that school, what you hope to do with the education that you're going to get at that school. You can also provide context for different other things on your application. And you can dream a little bit, I think, in these essays. So it would be my encouragement for you all to kind of have some fun with these a little bit. You want them to be grammatically correct and have all the words spelled right and all of that good stuff. But it's also an opportunity to show your personality a little bit as well in these applications. So yeah, just take them as a little bit less seriously, maybe. Often you can get sample essay prompts all over the internet and in the library as well, so that you can practice beforehand and do some of that fun stuff that I'm talking about. For example, these are the essay prompts from last year's common application. So you had the option to choose one of these 7 prompts for your essay that was included within the common app. So you'll see different things like reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or an idea, what prompted your thinking, what was the outcome, discussion accomplishments. You can share an essay on any topic of your choice. See, that's an opportunity, I think, for you to really kind of make this part of the application your own. As you can kind of talk about whatever you want to be important for you. So it's nice that you get some extra options as well. I believe the new essay prompts for the upcoming application cycle with the Common App. So for the 2024-2025 school year are usually released in early February. So it'd be a good time to check back in a few weeks here to see if they changed any of them. They don't always change them, but they don't always change them all. So this is probably a good place to start as well. But you can also check out the collection in the library. We have a bunch of books on writing good college essays. This is just a few of them. And again, for all of us in this room today, here's one that's write your college essay in less than a day. So there's options for you there as well. It will probably take you longer than a day to get the book from the library, depending on if it's checked out or not. So you still might want to plan ahead a little bit and to get that on hold or something. But as I said about BrainFuse a few minutes ago, it's a place that you can go once you have a draft of your essay done. You can upload it in this writing lab. They will get back to you in a few days with suggestions for improving your writings. It's a really good service that you can get through BrainFuse. I do a lot of work with the schools in the area. It's something I always suggest to the teachers that I work with is do whatever you can to kind of get your students to use this writing lab and get another set of eyes at writing. So, yeah. Those are essays. And then the next one is even shorter than the section on essays. It's recommendation letters. This is all the advice I have for you. Ask your teachers as early as you possibly can, and then say thank you. These recommendation letters are another thing, kind of a long list of stuff that teachers have to do outside of their classroom work, all that stuff. So you don't want to be the student that goes to the teacher that they want a recommendation from the day before that recommendation letter is due. I would bet that teacher is still going to write that letter for you, but they are maybe going to be a little bit less happy about it and be a little bit less generous with their thoughts on you, even if you're maybe like their favorite student, than if you had asked them, a month or two in advance. And then once you do have a few teachers that write letters for you, say thank you, write them a quick thank you card. It's just a nice thing to do to show your appreciation for the work that they have done with you over the years. All right. So that brings us to our final section of our application checklist, and that is financial aid. We could have spent the entire hour on financial aid. We could probably spend an hour every week for the next 6 months on financial aid, and it would still be a complicated and confusing process. These are a couple steps that you could follow. Just kind of break down the financial aid process again for yourself. So like I kind of said at the beginning, evaluate your college list. You don't want to do a bunch of financial aid applications for schools that you don't end up applying for. You're going to need to apply for federal and state aid that is through something called the FAFSA. You've heard of that before. You want to make sure there aren't any college specific requirements. You'll want to apply for scholarships. This is usually an entire other process outside of the financial aid process. And then finally, you're going to want to compare the different financial aid packages that you get from the schools you're accepted to. College is a really big, expensive decision. And it's worth taking as much time as you can give yourself to evaluate these different things to make sure it's the right thing for you at the right time. I value the education that I've gotten greatly. It's been very important to me in my life. But there are things that I wish I did different, to be totally honest. This is just my pitch to think about this early and often in this whole process about how much it's going to cost. All right. So that first step is evaluating your college list. And the big tip I have for you for this section of the financial aid process is that every single college that takes any amount of federal money, so whether that's student aid, that's grants, research things for their faculty, if they take any amount of federal money, they're required to have a price calculator on their website for you to get an estimate of how much a four-year degree is going to cost at that institution. It's a requirement. They all have it, but they don't make it very easy to find in most cases because a lot of times I think colleges don't want you to see how much it's actually going to cost. So a great way to find that is to go to Google and search for the name of the college that you're looking for and then net price calculator. If you Google that, it will usually bring up as the first or second result the web page on the college's website that does this price calculating. It is like a little bit of a form you fill out. You'll talk about your age, your expected degree. It will ask you questions about your parents and their expected contribution to your college education. And then at the end of it, it will give you an idea of how much it's going to cost to go there and what you can maybe expect as a financial aid package as well. So each of them would take, guessing, maybe 20 or 30 minutes to do. And as far as I've been able to find, there isn't a way to just do it for all the locations that you want at one time. But I do think it is a worthy use of your time to go through it and do the net price calculation. So, do you have a question?
I don't.
Okay, that's so. Like I said, they really do try to hide it on their websites. Don't let them hide it from you. They're required to have it. And then if you've gone ahead and decided which colleges you're going to apply to, you've done your price calculating. At this point, it is probably time to apply for federal student aid. And this is done through a process called the FAFSA. FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And if you want any amount of financial aid at all, whether that's scholarships, grants, work study jobs, any kind of financial aid assistance for your college education, you are required to fill out the FAFSA. You're required to fill out the FAFSA every year you're in college. It's not a one-time thing. You do it every year. And at least while you are a dependent on your parents will have to fill it out as well. There's some good news and bad news with this. The good news is that they have redesigned the FAFSA for the upcoming school year. It is supposed to be more streamlined and easier to fill out with more assistance within the application. However, it hasn't gone so well so far. It was supposed to be released, I think, in November. And I still don't think it's completely out yet because they've had some issues with it. I think one of them, and this is kind of embarrassing. I just heard this on a radio story last night, is that they didn't include inflation in the FAFSA. So all of the financial aid numbers that they were giving students were off by what they were supposed to be. They are working on fixing that right now, but be aware that there could be kind of a backlog as they go in. So it is supposed to be more streamlined. I took a look at the training materials for the new FAFSA. It was I think 265 slide presentation. So it's quite complicated still. But I'm hoping for all of your sakes that are applying to college that it is easier than it used to be, because I do remember it being pretty difficult. And one deadline to keep in mind for this is that if you're living in Missouri, there is the deadline. There are deadlines for applying for financial aid. Priority consideration is February 1st. But applications are accepted through April 1st. As long as there's aid still available. It's a finite pool of financial aid that can be used up before that April 1st date. I don't know if the errors in the program that I heard about last night are going to affect it at all. Affect those deadlines at all, but it's a good thing to know. Thankfully, again, it is a complicated process, but thankfully I also have another library tool to suggest to you. It's one we've heard about before already, and that is BrainFuse Help Now. Within their live tutoring, so within this little button right here, there is an option for FAFSA assistance. So just like they have live tutors available for schoolwork, they have people available that can assist you with the FAFSA process. They do not fill out the FAFSA for you. They can't do that. But what they'll do is try to help you know what documentation you need to gather, and then other kinds of information like that that can help you get started with the FAFSA. So that's another good option for you to remember. We are just about out of time for the evening. I'm going quickly, but there is further help available for you at the library. We are all great researchers here at the library, so we can help you with that kind of research process that you have to offer. As I kind of pointed out, some of those tools that you can access as well, like BrainFuse and Learning Express Library. We also have a service called Book a Librarian, where you would set up an hour-long one-on-one appointment with one of our reference librarians, where they could help you with different aspects of kind of especially the college search process. Kind of like the folks at BrainFuse, we don't fill out any forms or anything like that for you, but we can make suggestions about different tools you can use. We could show you how to use those tools, stuff like that. And just lots of great general help for us as well. You can also see our contact information on the far right-hand side of the slide. You can reach us by phone at 314-994-3300. We also have a text line, and you can email the reference department, which is mine and Jess's department, at reference@slcl.org. If you have questions about our resources, things like that. As I mentioned, I'll be emailing these slides out to everybody that was on the registration list in the next couple of days. But other than that, thank you all for attending. I hope it was helpful for you, and best of luck on your college application process. Right. That's it. Any questions online? Okay. Give it a